Hi, my name is Larry Staples. If you peoples can get God's doctrine, what peoples call the King James Version Bible peoples, and turn to the book of Deuteronomy peoples for chapter 5, verse 12 peoples. The scripture, the word of God says this peoples. Keep the Sabbath day to sanctify it, as the Lord thy God had commanded thee, which is to do what God's word say to do peoples about the Sabbath day. 6 days thou shalt labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thine ox, nor thine ass, nor any of thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates, that thy manservant and thy maidservant may rest as well as thou. When the word of God teaches about may rest as well as thou peoples, God is speaking about peoples who own businesses, peoples who peoples might call bosses, peoples. The will of God is for if those peoples who are bosses or owners of businesses rest on the Sabbath day, the will of God is for those peoples to let peoples who work for them rest on the Sabbath day to peoples. When the scripture, the word of God, teaches about a manservant and a maidservant, that is what peoples call peoples in the past who worked for peoples who owned businesses or who was the boss or ruler peoples. But nowadays, peoples who own businesses do not call the people's manservants or maidservants. They call peoples who work for them employees peoples. But the will of God is for those peoples who work for them and the peoples who own businesses not to work on the Sabbath day. It's for those peoples or animals or peoples who are strangers to rest on that day too, peoples, because the will of God was not for peoples to work like slaves, peoples. Because when God seen the peoples in Egypt who worked for Pharaoh on the Sabbath day, working like slaves and was suffering, when God chose Moses to bring the peoples away from Egypt to the mountain so God could give Moses his commandments and laws to teach to the peoples for them not to work on the Sabbath day anymore so that they could rest peoples. Because when peoples rest peoples, they might want to go be with friends or families, and they can do things gooder. But when they do not get rest peoples might not think well. They might not want to be with friends and family peoples, or if they drive a car and do not have rest, they might have an accident. So why God commandment is for peoples to remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy is because God knows what is good for us peoples. So it is God's will for us peoples to keep the commandments or obey the commandments peoples, because God knows what is good for all of us peoples. And remember that thou was a servant in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord thy God brought thee out thence through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore the Lord thy God command thee to keep the Sabbath day, which the will of God is for peoples to do what his words say do peoples. Honor thy father and thy mother, as the Lord thy God had commanded thee, that thy days may be prolonged, and that it may go well with thee, and the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, which the will of God is for children to speak the truth to their fathers and mothers, and do right and good by their fathers and mothers peoples. Thou shalt not kill. If you do not kill peoples, you will not go to prison. If you do not kill peoples will not want revenge for you killing their peoples. If you do not kill peoples, there will not be no reason for peoples who work as law enforcement officers or policemen to come and take you to prison. So that is why God do not want peoples to kill peoples.